Hi YouTube, Tim Unkert here. In this video we're going to walk through a geometric series quiz review. Let's start with problem 1. We're finding the sum of this geometric series. So we have 4, -8, 16, -32, and we're adding all the way up to -2048. So we need to first write the explicit formula for the geometric series, which is a sub n equals a sub 1, the first term, so the nth term equals the first term times the common ratio to the n minus 1 power. Okay? So this here is my nth term. This here is my first term. And my common ratio we can get by dividing any term by the previous term. So let's say I pick 16 and divided by -8. That's going to give me -2 for my common ratio. So we're going to start, we'll fill these out. So we're going to say -2048 equals 4 times -2 to the n minus 1 power. We're then going to solve for n. So we're first going to start by dividing by 4. So these 4's cancel out. And we'll get -512 equals -2 to the n minus 1. Now we can use Desmos to help us figure out from this point, so let's open Desmos. And we're looking to raise -2 to a power to get -512. So -2, let's start with the 5th power, that would be -32, it would be too low, right? So let's go up to the 10th power, that's 10,024. If I multiply by -2 again, so -2 to the 11th power, I get -2048. Okay, but we're looking for -512, so we went too high. So if I go back, -2 to the 7th power, that's still too low. -2 to the 8th power is 256, so we're getting closer. So if we do -2 to the 9th power, we get -512. Okay, so I'm going to write this as -2 to the 9th power. That equals -2 to the n minus 1 power. So we can say that 9 equals n minus 1. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add 1 to both sides. These will cancel out. And so 9 plus 1 is 10. That equals n. Okay? So now we can use the summation, or the sum formula for the sum of a geometric series, which is the sum of n terms equals the first term times 1 minus the common ratio raised to the number of terms n, all divided by 1 minus the common ratio. So let's plug in. So we're going to say the sum of these 10 terms equals the first term, which is 4, times 1 minus the common ratio, -2 to the 10th power, all over 1 minus the common ratio, -2. All right, so if I go to Desmos here, plug that in, I'll do 4 times 1 minus -2 to the 10th power divided by 1 minus -2. And we get -1,364. -1,364. And that's our solution for the first one. All right. Let's keep going. All right, problem 2, we're finding the sum of the following geometric series. So again, this is a sub n, this is a sub 1. The common ratios, let's take the second term 15 and divide by the first term 5. That'll be 3. Okay, so we're going to say 10,935 equals 5 times 3 to the n minus 1 power. We'll divide both sides by 5. So 10,935 divided by 5 gives us 2,187. Equals, and these cancel out, so we're just left with 3 to the n minus 1 power. So now we got to figure out what power of 3 equals 2,187. So we can do 3 to the x equals 2,087, and we see the line here goes through x equals 7. So 3 to the 7th power equals 3 to the n minus 1 power. So 7 equals n minus 1. So we add 1 to both sides. All right, so 7 plus 1 is 8. So 8 equals n. All right, so now we'll use our formula. The sum of 8 terms equals first term 5 times 1 minus the common ratio of 3 to the 8th power over 1 minus 3. All right, so we'll plug this into Desmos, this right-hand part. All right, so 5 times 1 minus 3 to the 8th power divided by 1 minus 3 is 16,400. So our sum for the 8 terms equals 16,400. Sweet, let's keep going. All right, problem 3, we've got sigma notation. Okay, so we need to know for our sum formula, we need to know the number of terms, n, the first term, and the common ratio, right? Because we're going to use this formula here, and we want to plug in those values. So the number of terms is going to be 11 because we start from 1 and go to 11. So n equals 11. The first term, that's going to be when n equals 1. So 2 times 3 to the 1 minus 1 power. 1 minus 1 is 0. So 2 times 3 to the 0 power. Any non-zero base to the 0 power is 1, so it's 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay? And then the common ratio, every time you increase n, so increase n here, we multiply by 3. So the common ratio is 3. So let's use our formula. We're going to say the sum of 11 terms equals the first term, which is 2, times 1 minus the common ratio of 3 to the 11th power over 1 minus the common ratio of 3. All right, so let's do that in Desmos. So 2 times 1 minus 3 to the 11th power over 1 minus 3, and we get 177,146. Let's just check that. Yep. So that's our answer. Boom. All right, one more to go. All right, so we're evaluating. Again, we got the summation notation with sigma. We're starting at n equals 0 and going to 13, so the number of terms, because you're including 0, is actually going to be 14 terms. The first term is going to be 1 times negative 3. N is going to equal 0 for the first term to the 0 power. So negative 3 to the 0 power is 1, so 1 times 1 is just 1. It's the first term. The common ratio, every time we increase by n, we're going to multiply by negative 3, so it's negative 3. So the sum of the 14 terms is going to equal the first term 1 times 1 minus negative 3 to the 14th power over 1 minus negative 3. So the sum of the 14 terms is going to equal, let's do Desmos. And we get 2,391,484. Let me just make sure I put that in there correctly. Whoops, I did not. So it's negative 3, not 3. Sorry. So now the solution is negative 1,195,742. Yeah, you got to catch yourself there. Okay, so it's negative 1,195,742. Okay, so do check yourself. I was going there quick. I just put in 3 instead of negative 3, so check your work as you study this stuff. Hopefully this video was helpful. If it helped you out, please like and subscribe. Thank you.